last you've got it all. Everything I have. Even my life. But you're not going to live to enjoy it. Come with me, murderess. Come with me.
All right, we made it, guys. It is Thanksgiving weekend, unless you've been living under a rock. I'm sure that you know that, hopefully. And I want to say, guys, it's going to sound like a line, but it's not. I'm grateful for you. I really am. If you're here, maybe that means that you ditched or ignored your family or friends to be here. I'm all for that. Maybe you brought them with you. Maybe you watched online. Maybe your plans were to hang out with us for tonight. Again, I love it, which is why I'm grateful. Okay, second thing that we all need to be grateful for, we all need to celebrate. Guys, there's no snow in Edmonton yet. Right? No applause? Okay, that's fine. Thank you, right? There's no snow yet. Let's be so grateful for that, because I am. It's not going to last long, but I'll take it. The third thing that I want to say that I'm grateful for, hopefully, is that if you are here in this room with me, I'm hoping that means you're healthy. This room is a healthy place, so that's something to be grateful for, fingers crossed. Okay, I wanted to kick off the night not only, well, on a high note, let's start with good things, acknowledge the good things, we need that. But I want to acknowledge Thanksgiving first, before jumping ahead to a future holiday event that I think we should cancel this year, okay? Now, I know it's only October, and I'm not going to take this in a dark turn. I'm not going to say Christmas, okay? That would be drastic and depressing. No, what I'm thinking is a future holiday, we should at least cancel the ritual of this, and that is New Year's resolutions, okay? Now hear me out, first of all. As much as we are grateful, and we will celebrate those things, in a couple days, many of us will move on from being grateful. And we will realize that this year has been rough. It's been a bit of a pill this year, right? Like, it's gotten to the point where it feels very pointless to make plans, to make resolutions or goals, but we've gotten very good at making multiple versions of a plan to fit the different scenarios that may or may not happen. It seems like everything, it's constantly changing. Nothing is certain, and we've come to a point where just constantly adapt to multiple things. Guys, if at any point, if you have felt alone in this, or you feel like you're struggling, check this out.
No, there's a but.
Just, given how 2020 is gone, they just want to cover alternative release date promos.
Cool.
Just one or two.
All right, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Free Guy, coming this Christmas.
Fantastic.
Free Guy, coming this New Year's.
Nice.
Okay, here we go. Free Guy, coming this Valentine's Day.
Free Guy, coming this Labor Day.
Coming this April, probably.
Smart.
Coming on July 4th.
Coming before or after the next Olympics.
Coming Halloween, but not the one that you think.
When Mars is in retrograde.
Before the asteroid hits. This Pine Cone Appreciation Day.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, for 40 or 50 years.
If you are struggling, know that Ryan Reynolds gets it, okay? He's in our corner. He really is. As a disclaimer, I have no idea if that movie is good. Couldn't find a rating. Just gonna put that out there. Basically, we are at a point where we need to prep for everything so that you are not disappointed by anything. Okay? That should be a resolution for the new year. It's a terrible rule of thumb to live by, but it's where we're at, basically. We kicked off a brand new series just last week for the month of October. It's called My Life is a Haunted House. We wanted this series, it's meant for you to ask yourself, okay, what are those dark areas of my life? What parts are abandoned or haunted that you're too afraid to look at? Because sometimes nothing is scarier than looking at the reality of your own life. Like those habits, those practices, or decisions that maybe start to drag you down. We're not here to point out your flaws or compare who's more messed up. Because every single one of us, online or in this room, we have we're battling with a certain darkness in our life, a certain mess that we have that we don't really want to be exposed. So rather than deflecting or comparing to someone else's mess, we want to help you hopefully bring some light and some health to those darker areas of your life. That's what this month is going to be about. So, if there was a resounding theme for at least my life this year, maybe yours too, I don't know, I would say it's disappointing, like hands down. And yes, there's been good things for sure. It's Thanksgiving, be grateful beyond tomorrow. But we can also acknowledge that we have come to a point where after so many disappointments, the expectations, they're low. Like they may have hit a new low. Like how many of you, for example, were you invited and then uninvited to a wedding this summer? Maybe it was your own wedding, you had to change plans like 6 times. Maybe you're supposed to have grad from high school, university. And I don't know what grad ceremonies were. Was it a Zoom ceremony? Like it was bad, whatever it was probably. Or your first year of university, or if you're just in that phase of life of university where it's supposed to be like this big thing, it's exciting, you're on campus, you hopefully meet new people, but now classes are like you stare at a black screen, no one turns their camera on, no one turns their mic on, and that's class now. Or things like if your practicum was canceled or changed, or you can't find a job because it's really hard out there, or your travel plans are trashed. Or the worst one, I think, for most of us might be you just have like permanent acne on your chin from wearing a mask all the time. Like it has felt like just one disappointing blow after another of things that we can't really control. So you expect less, and then there's less disappointments. Fingers crossed. Or maybe, let's take it even one step further, and this is more of a personal one. But do you feel like the disappointment? And this could look different for all of us, but it could be that feeling deep down where you just feel so inadequate. Like you feel like you are a disappointment to yourself, to others. Maybe that's like your parents, your boss, or just the people around you. You feel like you're letting them down. And what if that doesn't go away? Or maybe you screwed up, or you caught doing something or saying something that you know you shouldn't have. Or maybe you know what you're doing, but you haven't been caught yet. But if someone were to find out and see what you were doing, you know they'd be disappointed in you. Or that you'd be disappointed in yourself when you finally face it. Disappointment, it can come at us in so many different forms, whether it is self-inflicted or completely out of our control. It's an emotion that it's kind of like a sleeping beast, because we can be very quick to dismiss it, you can underestimate it. It does not feel as extreme as anger, or even as intense as jealousy. But it can be so dangerous in ways that we won't anticipate. We may not give it the attention that we think we need to. Because living out of disappointment, that can lead us to these darker places where you make unhealthy choices that you never thought you would make. And I know that can sound extreme or dramatic, but here's what I mean. Disappointment, when left unchecked, that will lead you to compromise. Like when left unchecked, our disappointments, it will cause us to compromise our values, or to do and say things that would just fill you with regret. I don't know about in your own life, but maybe as an example, maybe you were denied from the school or program that you tried so hard to get into. So instead, you're like, screw this. You give up and you settle for something that you don't even really care about. And you're like, this is my life now. Maybe you're given more responsibility at work, but you slack off. Maybe you screw it up. So instead, you try to cover it up or just lie. Or when the world shut down and your travel plans you probably saved for months or years, whatever it was, it's all canceled. So instead, you burn through that money on, I don't know, stuff that maybe you're not even using right now. Maybe you're upset with the relationship that you have, or lack thereof, so you decide to cheat, or just turn to porn again one night. Like you were disappointed by yourself or by others, so you compromise. Like you ignore these values and you make decisions that you would not normally make. And when we are disappointed, it is so incredibly tempting just to compromise and say, screw it, I'm going to go do this instead. And we all have this, myself included. And that is this dangerous part of compromise, because it starts really small. It can just be that one decision. It's almost unnoticeable sometimes, until then you're in over your head, and then you just feel you're stuck in this, your own mess or regret. There's this really incredible story in the Bible, and if you've been coming to church for a while, you've probably heard of it. But it's about a guy named David. And he gets a lot of face time in the Bible, mainly because there's a lot to his story, but just going to catch up to speed to remind you. So David, even from the early years, he was kind of a jack of all trades. He's described as a musician. The Bible actually describes him as good looking, so there's that. He actually, when he was younger, he starts off as a shepherd, which is not a highly esteemed position. It's more of a low position, but he has to learn to fight off like bears and lions, which is a big deal, to protect his sheep. He's the David from the David and Goliath story, takes out the giant, all that stuff. And he goes on to lead these really great armies. So he is known in the Bible. He is a man of character. He's a man of integrity. He is wise. He is courageous. And the Bible describes him twice as a man after God's own heart. And as the story progresses, God actually appoints David as king. He becomes king over all of Israel. So he's the guy in charge. That's what I want to pick up. That's what's happening to David. So just to set the context, we're in 2 Samuel, it's in the Old Testament. At this point, like I said, David, he's king, but he has sent his army, his Israelite army, out to battle. So they're in war, but he stayed back in Jerusalem, which isn't normal. Usually the kings go with, but for some reason he stayed back in Jerusalem. This is what happens. So late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told, she is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam and wife of Uriah. Then David sent messengers to get her. When she came to the palace, he slept with her. Then she returns home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, shocker, she sent David a message saying, heads up, I'm pregnant. So at this point, David realizes, okay, like he screwed up. He now got another man's wife pregnant. So he has to figure out how he's going to cover his tracks. So what he does is he sends for her husband, who is out fighting in battle. His name is Uriah. He sends him to come home. And he says this. When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and the army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, hey, go home and relax, which means go home and sleep with your wife. David even sent a gift to Uriah even after he had left the palace. But Uriah did not go home. He slept that night at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. When David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked, okay, what's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long? And Uriah, he basically explains to David, he's like, hey, thanks for the gesture, but the guys out there fighting for you are sleeping in fields. And he says, how could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear I would never do such a thing. And it goes on. So David says, okay, stay here today, and tomorrow you can go back to the army. So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then, he could not get Uriah to go home to his wife. Again, he slept at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. Okay, so plan A, get the guy home, sleep with your wife. Doesn't work. Plan B, get him drunk first, then he'll go sleep with his wife. Still doesn't work. So now he has to go to plan C, and this is what he chooses to do. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is fiercest, then pull back so that he will be killed. Yeah, and that's exactly what happens. Like Uriah, he is killed along with several other soldiers. And still the story goes on for David. There's more drama. It says, when Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the period of mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son. The Lord was displeased with what David had done. Have you, like in your own life, have you ever had someone tell you personally that they are displeased with you? Or that they're disappointed in you? Or maybe you were the one to say that to someone else? There is so much weight to that. Like, that's something that you don't forget easily, especially if it's from God. And like I said, this is not the end of David's story. There's a ton more that happens. Honestly, go read it, 2 Samuel. It's very dramatic. But for this particular part of the story, bit of a spoiler alert, the baby actually ends up dying. And David, rightly so, he's completely wrecked. Now I'm going to say a lot of us in this room or online have probably never been in a situation exactly like this. But has there been a time in your life where you find yourself, you're in a place and you're like, how did I end up here? Like, what did I do to bring me to this place? Because listen, how did David go from being this respected and very anointed king by God to then sleeping with and impregnating another guy's wife, and then he goes on to murder that man? Like, how does that just happen? He compromised. And it began so very small. Like, if you look back at the start of the chapter, it says David, he napped. You probably all napped before coming here. He napped, he got up, he looked out at the city, he noticed her, and asked a simple question, who is that? Like, those seem like small things. But then it was this next choice in verse 4 that completely unravels his life. Because like when he sent for her, honestly, what did he think was going to happen? It's not like he was lonely. He had other wives. Would they chat? I don't know. Would they have a snack? I don't know what snacks were back then. I feel like it'd be grapes. Have some grapes. I don't know. Did he know what was going to happen? But that is the problem with compromise. Like, it will chip away your common sense. You will go against your better judgment. But it can start so small, almost casual, until all of a sudden you are in it. You are often in too deep. So for you, or for me, if we were to take a step back from David's story, look at your own life for a minute, like we would realize, or at least I have come to realize, that way, way too often, the catalyst to our compromises can be our disappointments. Because disappointment, when left unchecked, it will lead you to compromise your values. And that will usually leave you to regret. Guys, you know this year has been rough. Like, it has been a pill. Doesn't seem to be easing up very much. And even in my life, it's been frustrating. And this might sound super trivial, but like, I had trips planned, I had concerts booked, there are people that I still can't see, and it's been so annoying. It's been very disappointing. But I've also heard a lot of stories from you guys and what you've been going through. And honestly, it's brutal. It's been like one blow after another. But since we are still very much in the middle of this, whatever this is, the question I want to challenge you with, the question that I need to be challenged by, is where is your disappointment leading you? Whether that disappointment is self-inflicted, if it's completely out of your control, where is it taking you? Because is it taking you to a place of compromise? Are you sacrificing those values? Are you stumbling around in the dark hoping you figure something out? Just a quick side note. I'm just going to be blunt for a second. If you are at a place where you are upset, you are frustrated, maybe you're thinking, screw this, like I just need a freebie. I can do a quick little detour and get back on track, whether that is going to porn one night or whether that's having the second, third, fourth drink, whatever it is. Taking those small detours, yeah, they don't work. They never work out like we think they will. I'm not saying that to be dramatic or extreme, but that one-time freebie, it's often like a perfect example of that one little compromise that it could take you out, or it could take you to a place that you really don't want to be. Because the more that you have to justify or excuse yourself, the more you know you are compromising your values. Something's off. So where are your disappointments leading you? Are you using them as an excuse just to give up? Or can you take those disappointments and can you rebuild? Like, is there part of your life that, yeah, you feel like it's crumbling and it's falling apart, and that is disappointing, but is there a part where you can just take a second and reassess what you've been doing, take ownership of that disappointment and not allow it to own you? But ask yourself, can I rebuild here? Can I dig my feet in and think, okay, this is important to me. This is where I can't compromise. Because facing those disappointments, they create really unique opportunities to reassess and figure out, okay, how can I rebuild rather than compromise? In Romans 5, it says this, "And we boast in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, we also glory in his sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. A hope that does not disappoint us, because God's love that has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us." Okay, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm backed into a corner and my failures are all that I can see, or the crap is like blowing up, I so badly want to be that person that can like dig in and persevere. I don't want to be that person that like easily caves or just says like, screw it, whatever. Like, I want to be that person who can persevere, that leads to character, that leads to hope. Like, to be a person of hope in the face of disappointment, yeah. Like, I need that. I want that. But this hope that is mentioned here, it's not just about being constantly optimistic. Optimism, it's good. It is needed. It is not a bad thing to be optimistic. But it only takes you so far. I don't know, like sometimes I find it can be a little surface level sometimes. Because you're allowed to feel disappointed. That is okay. But this hope that is mentioned here, a hope that does not disappoint us, that kind of hope does not depend on us. It's not just about keeping up a good attitude. Because if you are a follower of Jesus, that means that whether you realize this or not, you are filled with this love and this hope from God that is not determined by you or your current circumstances. I mean, filled with this hope that does not disappoint, it means that he is God and you are not. He's not going to use your disappointment against you. No, he's already working 2 steps ahead of you. He's working on your behalf. He knows where he wants to take you. And it's trusting in this hope that only he gives. It is not going to be swayed by you or be swayed by your mess. This hope and this love that he has for you, it's constant. It's always there. It doesn't change no matter what you try to do to it. When he slept with Bathsheba that first time and she got pregnant, like I said, the baby passed away. And there was a lot more to the story. Seriously, go read it. And eventually he is caught. He's found out. And people know what he did to Uriah. And David goes through this really heart-wrenching time. And finally, he turns to God. And long story short, David and Bathsheba, they get pregnant a second time. And they have a baby boy. And this is what it says. Then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And David named him Solomon. The Lord loved the child and sent word through Nathan the prophet that they should name him Jedediah, which means beloved of the Lord. Yeah, God was displeased with David. He said that. We know that. He was disappointed. And David was disappointed in himself. Like, he was wrecked by his own actions. He paid for it. But God's hope and that love that he had for him, that did not change. God still was working on his behalf. And that part does not change for us. No matter what kind of mess you find yourself in, that hope in you and that love he has for you does not change. Okay, now, how do we actually do this? How do we just persevere and build character when you are really disappointed? How do you recognize those warning signs before you cave or just compromise? I want to help you, hopefully, turn the lights on in your situation. And a really good place to start, a first step, I would say, is acknowledge your disappointment. Own it. If you screwed up, own it. Like, don't just lie to yourself, and this is really hard to do, but push away the excuses or the reasonings or the justifications you have in your head and just get to the bottom line truth. Recognize it. Admit to your screw up. Or if someone disappointed you, acknowledge it. You're allowed to be upset. That's okay. Or if life has just seemed crappy lately and everything is just falling apart, it's out of your control, take a second and realize that. The second thing I would say, another really good thing, this might be uncomfortable, but allow yourself to walk through those emotions that you're feeling. If it's anger, if it's sadness, if it's grief, whatever it is, be willing to face them one at a time. Because facing your emotions and walking through them, that will bring a lot more freedom and healing than ignoring them ever will. Every single time. And saying it's fine over and over doesn't make it fine. So let yourself feel what you're feeling. Third thing I would say, don't despise your need for God or your need for others. The Bible says that we will walk through difficult things. That is a fact. It's going to happen. But you're not ever meant to walk through it alone and just figure it out. God wants to bring that light to your dark situation, but you have to let him in. So don't despise your need of him. Like, asking for help, if you follow Jesus or not, asking for help, one of the best things you can do. You can't just build perseverance or build character, or remember to be hopeful on your own. So can I encourage you, don't despise God in asking for help or bringing people in. Fourth, I would say, make a plan. Like facing your disappointments, like I said, it is a unique opportunity to rebuild, to reassess. Failure is an incredible teacher. I have learned way more from my failures than any sort of success I had. So what is your plan? What needs to change? Invite someone into that mess. We are meant to carry each other's burdens. Go see a counselor. If you have not seen a counselor yet, can I just say go do it now, okay? Don't wait until things get worse. Don't wait until you kind of pull some things together and then go. They are there to help. So if you're waiting to go see, just go see. And part of making a plan is asking yourself, okay, where have I compromised? Where am I currently compromising? What are those triggers for me? You can't just get rid of a bad habit. You have to make a plan and be intentional and figure out some healthy alternatives. And we're going to talk about next week, I think, different ways to cope. And the fifth thing, the last thing I would say, second last thing, is pray. Pray often. This is not to just pray away your pain, but if praying is not part of your day, schedule it in. Carve that time out and protect that time. Because building a consistent prayer life, that will bring a peace and a perspective to your life that you can't just manufacture on your own. So I'll close with this. Please don't let your disappointments keep you in the dark. Don't feel like you have to use them as an excuse just to give up, or worse, compromise your values. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. But it's when you face those disappointments head on and you own them, and you figure out, okay, how can I rebuild? That can restore so much in your life and bring that hope again and that light. Let me pray for you guys. God, thank you that we don't have to figure this out on our own. That if we find ourselves in a dark place, that's okay, because you are here to bring light. You are here to reach out to us. We just need to take that step and turn to you. So God, I pray for every person watching or here tonight, whatever is in their way, if it's pride or worry or fear, God, would you meet them where they're at? Remind them of your faithfulness, of your goodness, that you are kind, and that we can trust that looking to you, you will bring that hope again. God, we pray for this in the power of your name. Amen.
I am one, and by perfect love, wrapped within the arms of heaven, in a peace that lasts forever, sinking deep in mercy. See, I'm wide awake and drawing close, stirred by grace, and all my heart is yours, and I'll feel removed. I breathe you in, I lean into your love, and oh, one desire. Lord, hear my only cry to know you all my life. We put our trust in you, Jesus. Put it all in you. I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. And I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, the price for my heart. I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, again. Heart has been in your sight long before my first breath. Running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out, and just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to waste. And my heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I run to the Father again and again. Oh, oh, oh. we just thank you that we can come to you again and again and again. And you forgive us every time, Jesus. Your forgiveness never runs out. Your grace never runs out. Your empowering grace to help us through the day, to help us get through the week and deal with the uncertainty that we feel, God. We know one thing is certain, is that you're good, Jesus. No matter what the circumstances are, no matter what plays out, you're good. You're good and you've got us and we're your children, Jesus. So we just rest in that today and we trust in you.